Please welcome Samantha Goble.
Good morning, everybody. I'm waiting for my deck to pop up here. We're almost there. All right. To start, I always like to gauge the understanding of the buzzwords that I'm going to use here. So, show of hands, who knows what composable is? Awesome, because I actually have some educational slides on it, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't talking about things you already know. So, really quickly, as what I already said, my name's Sam Goble, and I'm with XCentium. We are a digital consultancy, which, big words can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but ultimately we build websites. And all the integrations, designs, analytics, strategy, hosting, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. And we do a lot of work in the financial services space, which includes banks, credit unions, insurance, kind of across the board. Take a look at this stuff. There might be other things that I'm not talking about today that you might want to speak to us about later. So my colleague Matt and I have a table in the other room. You can come find us. But I want to get into the meat of things. One of the things that makes our company a little bit unique is that we do not specialize in a single vertical. Now, some of you might be like, I don't really care that you do things besides FinServ. But here's where it helps. Sometimes when we get out of that box of what we think we already know, or just looking at our industry, we can learn things elsewhere. And so that's one of the things I enjoy about the work that we do, is that we're always trying to think outside of the box, but not just for the sake of being different. We are always looking for solutions, creative solutions to build better, to give you more than you thought you wanted or you thought you needed, and to also have that not cost millions and millions of dollars. So this is a lot of good news, I hope, for you guys today that I'll be sharing. So Composable relates to the way tech is built, and we think that it's the way things are going. I'll try to keep it simple. The old systems, depending on what your website might be built on, it's potentially a monolith, which means that if you buy an expensive system, it comes with all the bells and whistles, whether you're using them or not. It also means that when you want to shift, you need probably 12 months at least, and you need a whole lot of budget to do that. The beauty of Composable is that the idea is that you can mix and match these Lego pieces in your system at the time you need them, which means you're paying for development and paying for licenses when you're ready to use them. The other cool thing is that the build cycle on all this stuff, if you were to ask me 5 years ago, okay, I need to do a total overhaul of my website, I need to redesign, we need to re-platform, we need to move everything, that's probably a 9 to 12-month project, easily, depending on how available your resources are. That's not the state anymore. It's typical now that we can get websites built within a quarter. And I actually have examples of this. This is not just theory. And so it's done using tools like this. So if your biggest need is your CMS, we're actually going to be talking about XM Cloud, which is a Sitecore product today. But we partner with all of these companies, and there's additional ones as well. And so the benefit to this is you can pick what works best for your org, and you're not stuck with okay, well, we have Adobe, so we have to have all the rest of the Adobe products. We have Salesforce, we have to use all the Salesforce products. You have choice. So it is, it can be a little bit tougher on the software side, but what it means is that all of these companies are putting their best foot forward and really making sure that they're delivering something that's competitive and that enables your teams. So in terms of Composable and where you might be, you might not have known what the term Composable was when I first asked it. But as I started to talk about these mix and match pieces, tech getting a little bit lighter, API first, being very flexible, that might start to ring a bell. So I'll ask for a show of hands again. How many of you are starting to do some of those Composable type projects or moves? All right, there's a few more, so good to hear. The beauty of this, I think for, I'm obviously on the, the implementation side of things, but if I were in that, if I were client side and sitting there as a marketing leader, this would be really exciting to me. Because I can sit here and talk to you about all the fancy stuff like that is like, okay, if you're doing all the things and you have all the budget and all the time in the world, I'm going to talk to you today about just the non-sexy stuff, but the stuff that's probably going to make a difference in your lives and in your pain points that you're dealing with. So, what are the benefits of this composable model? I've already mentioned it's faster to market. And it truly is. This, when this whole movement, for us, it started maybe like, I would say 3 years ago. But we are seeing those speeds continue to grow because to stay competitive, the implementation partners have to get faster. They have to develop things that are going to accelerate that path. I actually have a video at the booth that shows you an example of something that we've built that actually does that. It also gives you the ability to pivot. I can't tell you how many people I'm still talking to that say, well, yeah, like we want to do it, but we know that to move, it's not just changing the tech, it's changing your operations and sometimes adjusting the skill set of the people that you have that also has to support all this. This is becoming easier and easier as we go. I already mentioned the cost of tech. If you're paying for it as you go, then you're not sitting there with stuff on the shelf that's expensive to run, expensive to host, but you're not really getting the benefit of it. And the very best part is that the day-to-day marketers become empowered. And if you're a really good marketing leader, that's what you want. I have worked with some who are like, it's kind of nice to have that excuse of, well, IT hasn't built us the tech, so we can't do that fancy thing. You're here, so I'm assuming that you're the kind who's like, no, I want to undo those roadblocks so we can keep moving. So getting more specific, right? Those earlier bullet points were kind of vague. This is exactly what this means, though. There's all kinds of technical reasons why the tech folks also like this model, one of which is that they don't have to take and deal with content requests all the time, and they can actually do the good tech work. But the customer experience and the user experience is very easy for the marketers to manage. You do not have to be technical to do this. And so, let's say that you have a page template. It's pretty well designed. It has all this, all the pieces in it, but you have a need on a certain page. I don't need these 3 components. Or I really need this component to just look a tiny bit different. I might need to change the color. I might need to swap, which side an image is on compared to where the text is. In many systems, that is an IT touch. It's a many-step thing. With Composable, it's one person making that adjustment, and it's very simple. One-to-one personalization then becomes a lot easier. And in part, this is because you're unburdening all these other roadblocks. So the more flexible that system is, the easier it is for you to get that personalization in place. How many of you are personalizing on your websites today? That's a little bit surprising to me, and here's why. It is not that hard. I'd love to, let me ask another question. If you're not personalizing, show of hands that it's because your tech can't support it. Show of hands again. How many of you, it's because you don't have the time to figure out that strategy? Okay, that's the more common problem, but Matt and Mo in the back, hopefully you caught whose tech wasn't catching up. ROI is a lot easier to trace in this stuff. That's a challenge that I've had is, okay, like I know we're doing things, I know people are showing up, but I can't really connect those experiences to what does that mean in dollars? Back when I started doing personalization 7 or 8 years ago, for most marketing leads, if they could just personalize the homepage image based on a geo, that was it. They hit their yearly goal, they checked the box. I saw somebody laugh, that was good. But even back then, well, we just need to personalize that image on the homepage. My question was always, why? What the heck is that gonna get you? Okay, cool, you personalized. Did that make them buy more? Did that retain that customer more? So this is allowing you to really make sure that you're focusing on the things that matter. And part of it is taking the easy stuff and having that take way less time. Very user-friendly. I already mentioned the omni-channel enablement. That's kind of self-explanatory. When you have all these pieces that can easily integrate, then that makes that omni-channel traceability and experience a lot easier. It also means that you can centralize content, whether it's in a DAM or whether it's in a CMS. These things are really easy to then connect to your apps, to connect to your social, to connect to other sites that you have outside of that system. Clearly, it's better for productivity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about this. This is all great in theory. I told you I would offer you examples, and I've got a couple of customers that I'm going to talk about today. So the first one is MGIC. You guys have all heard of MGIC? Mortgage insurance based out of Milwaukee. They were built on a monolith. They're still on a monolith. So remember, that's the thing where everything is, comes in that one package. You're paying for all the pieces, whether you're using them or not. Luckily, MGIC is using most of those pieces. They are going to go this composable headless route, but they weren't ready for it yet. They had spent a lot of time building out their personalization tools, and they had just gotten the hang of using their system. But they still had this situation where if marketing wanted to publish a new page or make a change to a page, it almost always involved a developer getting involved to have to, publish the change, make some slight tweak to it. And then there was the back and forth with approvals, etc. Because it included IT, they had to get on IT schedule. Way more headaches than it should have been, but that was how the system worked, and that's how they needed to work. Their CMS, they couldn't make simple changes like, hey, I want to put a different component on this page. I want a component that mostly looks like this one, but I want to tweak it slightly, remove an image, add another text block. They couldn't do it without IT. And then because of that, and because of the analytics that they were looking at, they really couldn't take a whole lot of action on that stuff because they were stuck in this, old style of getting their content published. So the plan was they stayed on their existing platform. You are not going to hear me today tell you that you have to scrap everything you have and spend a whole lot of money on new, because in 2024, nobody has that kind of budget. This is what I love about this stuff. We can provide solutions with it that organizations can actually get funding for because they're proving their value right away. So we upgraded their solution on their existing platform, got them to the latest and greatest, and at the same time, we rewrote that front end. So the front end code got rewritten in a language and a style so that when they go composable, we're not going to throw away all that work. So they're taking that piece, it applied to this upgrade, and then it's going to apply to their next step. We added some flexibility to their components, so marketers do not have to go to IT every time they want to make a change to a page template or every time they want to make a slight tweak to a component on a page. And so the best part are the numbers. They went from having like a 2-week cycle to get simple content changes pushed through, and they're getting them done in sometimes less than a day, but on average, it's like between 1 to 2. So even though that's not a fancy benefit, think about what that means to the productivity of your internal teams. Most of us, I have not talked to a marketing team in the past 2 years who has not been asked to do more, to prove more value, and you're not getting more headcount. So how are you going to do it? You're going to burn out your people, you're going to burn out yourself, whatever. This is the thing that's going to enable you. You're going to prove that value. And then that means that you can free up those marketers to actually think and not be doing mundane tasks all the time. And so this is what MGIC is seeing. And as a result, they were able to increase the amount of personalization and experimentation they were able to do because they got all this other nonsense out of the way. And again, this is not a fancy project, but there's huge business value. We're not even talking about, conversion and all that kind of stuff. That's going to come, and we're talking about additional things that are really going to move the needle for these guys. But sometimes the biggest thing that we need to empower our teams is to simply give them that time to think by making sure the tech is working for you. I think most of us underestimate what it should be doing for you. And we accept, okay, well, this is just how it is because somebody in IT or somebody somewhere told me, yeah, this is just what it does. If you're hearing that, you should be asking some questions and finding out what else is happening out there and what else is possible. You will also probably have folks telling you you need at least 12 months and $1 million. You do not. You need a fraction of that. So now let's talk about Guidewire. This is a customer that actually went fully composable. Their issues were a little bit more severe than MGIC's. They had a solution that was not entirely stable. It was not performant. They desperately needed a redesign. So this also aligned with, they had budget to do that. But they had expectations on the marketing team that the solution just couldn't support. They could not actually get the things done, and it was not capable. So it went beyond, hey, we're spending too much time on things, and it was more, we can't execute on the personalization, the content turnaround that they needed. So they needed that flexible website, which I've already talked about, and they also desperately needed an improved search that used machine learning to improve those search results quickly. So they had their agency do the redesign. We came in to help with platform selection, as they decided what they were going to use. They used Sitecore XM Cloud, which is the platform I previously mentioned. And it's been a huge success. They're actually going to be at an event with us next week where they're nominated for an award amongst that Sitecore community. So one of the big things I just mentioned this kind of in passing, but people aren't talking enough about how much these changes affect the change management that you have to go through in your org. So think about it for a second. If you were to go with something totally different, go to more modern tech, let's say you don't have it right now, how many of you feel like you would be met with strong resistance on your team of learning a new system? Oh, this makes me really happy. There's not a lot of hands. So that's great. This is sometimes a reason why companies might say, oh, well, we're going to have to ask people to do different stuff. The other worry that we get is, well, if you're saying it's going to be less work for IT, are we going to lose our IT people, or are you suggesting that we put them out of a job? I absolutely am not. You still need those people. You just need them doing more advanced stuff. And again, not mundane content management kind of stuff. This is what this enabled for Guidewire. I mentioned too that companies like mine are having to up their game with who can get this to market faster and how can we save you money. So XCentium has built out vertical-based accelerators that use Gen AI to help map old content into new systems, for example. So again, we're not using robots to create a brand for you, but we're using them where we should to do some of that heavy lifting. Let's see. So I love these results. Their content agility, again, and these are numbers that are coming direct from the customer. We did migrate tens of thousands of pages. Sometimes one of the biggest things that holds orgs back from a replatform or from doing something like this is just the sheer amount of work that it's going to put on your internal resources. It's nice to think, okay, we could hire somebody to do that, but there's internal knowledge and institutional knowledge that means you can't just plug and play and somebody just moves this stuff over. What we've seen with using some of these accelerator tools is if your team's not having to go through the boring exercise of, okay, now we have to look at and evaluate every piece of content, because that work is being done, it also gives you an opportunity to clean and improve that content. And so for me as a marketing leader, that's something that we're actually doing on the XCentium side. And that kind of cleaning house makes me really happy, because even though it's not the stuff people see, we all know that it bogs marketing teams down internally. But those are real numbers. So typically, a project like that would have been, I think we did this one in 5 months. And it was supposed to be 4, and the only reason it moved was they added some scope to it. So the thrilling part is, we don't have those, they're saying it's going to be 6 months, but yeah, it's probably going to be more like 14, because they're going to tell us what we want to hear. We actually have the proof on delivered projects. So this is really exciting stuff. What I hope you take away from this is not, oh shoot, she's telling us we have to redo everything. Think about what is the pain point. a simple pain point that if you could change that one thing would make you feel a lot better about going to work every day. Take a second to think, and then I'm going to tell you what mine is. Okay, my simple thing is I have all kinds of data, not in a million different places, in a few, but I did not have a consolidated, simple report. I had all the data. Here's the deal. Most of my team is also working for our clients, so I get them when I can get them. I now have a really, really straightforward report. It took somebody about 3 days to do. It was easy. This is what this composable stuff is. If your biggest pain point is, oh my God, our search is a giant pain in the neck. These composable tools, they plug in best with one another, but they can be plugged in on a monolithic system. They can work that way. It's not ideal. They're going to work better and easier elsewhere. But all of these pieces can be, brought in when that's their biggest pain point. So like we have a lot of customers right now where they're like, yeah, our CMS is crummy, but that's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is I can't organize our content well. I don't want it in the CMS. I've got all these other, I've got print needs. I've got, all these other folks who need access, so they need a DAM. I've got other folks who say our search doesn't even remotely do what it's supposed to do. Talk to somebody about just fixing and bringing in potentially a new search tool, or even optimizing the one you have. There's a lot that's possible now. So think about those pain points. Does anybody want to volunteer a pain point? Because I'm guessing that most of us have the same ones. All right. Maybe you'll ask me questions about it. I went through this super, super fast, but I would love to talk with you more. If you guys have questions, I will be up here for a little bit. Also be in the next room. Hopefully we gave you some food for thought. Yes?
Sam, I have a question. Can you go back one page on your results? Do you also, in addition to these, which are stellar, have downstream results to client outcomes as well? So if everyone is becoming more efficient, you're saving money, generating revenue, what are the additional outcomes that you see?
One of my favorite ones is that your CFO is going to be really happy with you. Some of the downstream stuff is because you can prove value so quickly and so concretely, this is enabling folks to get additional funding for other things. It's unblocking that. It is unusual, I'd say in the past year or so. It used to be like we would never hear from a CFO. Like, it would only be like if something was totally like not communicated right and wires were crossed. We didn't talk to CFOs. Nowadays, every contract that a CFO is taking a look at it, which for us we love, because we're not checking boxes on scope. We are all about, okay, what value is this going to provide for you guys? Because we know that's going to be a sustainable business model for us if you can trust us as consultants and folks that you can bring in for solid opinions, and we're going to bring the proof and the data. Let's see, downstream. I mean, ultimately, we are getting better customer experience for your clients or for your customers out of this. These are solutions and websites and things that connect into the websites that perform really, really quickly. So one of the things, I think we had this stat on Guidewire too, but it wasn't the most impressive one. Their old solution had a really horrible Lighthouse score. And it was unavoidable. It was an old system. They did the best they could with the front end, but those old systems just really can't support it. By their very nature, these composable systems, especially if they're built on mock principles, and most of them are, by their very nature, you're going to explode that Lighthouse score, which is going to help with those organic search rankings and everything else. So there's a lot of things that are, maybe they're not the fanciest stuff, but if you're having trouble just even setting that foundation so you can get to the really important stuff, take a look at these methods and start to ask some more questions about them. They also come with lower budgets, so they're easier to be approved. So lower budget, faster timeline, those are things that the C-suite might sign off on if you tell them, they don't have to wait for 12 months to start to get their value. Yes. Yes. There's a lot of good ones out there. We work a lot with TransPerfect. In the past, I've worked with Clay Tablet and Lionbridge. We don't make a blanket statement of like, hey, this is the one we recommend. And saying it depends sounds like a cop-out, but it really does depend. There are sometimes unique needs that an organization has. There are sometimes unique pain points that one tool might be better than another for. And so, as a company, we don't ever tell you, here's what you should go with. We will educate you. We will give you the options. We will connect you to our partners so that you can learn more from them. And we can help you capture that data in your pros and cons list. And then we'll also help you build out, a TCO map of like, okay, what is this actually going to cost you? And at what point are you going to see those, those benefits? Hopefully that helped. There's more there's more translation tools out there. Those are just a few that I thought of, but Matt and Mo, you guys probably have others that, that you want to add later.
Are there certain companies that you like to work with for like ADA compliance?
Actually, we do QA and planning for ADA compliance. It is important, though, that you're working with an org that actually understands what that means. In other words, I have heard of too many people say, well, oh yeah, we've got this plugin installed, so it takes care of things. No, it does not, because hopefully we all know in this room, ADA compliance is not a clear-cut black and white set of do X, Y, and Z. There's interpretation on all of it. So you need to work with organizations that have QA teams that understand what that means and that can give those options and make recommendations for you to continue to refine those standards. So yeah, in terms of a company, we do that. and our designers design according to best practices with ADA, always. It's not an add-on that you get charged for it. That is a baseline expectation. All right. Thank you. Come talk to us.
Thank you.